are on the website,
Okay.
and they were emailed.
Okay.
Plus the agenda is there.
All right. I'm sorry, I don't have my iPad with me. So this is a action item for approval of our June meeting.
So they're not on our,
Here, I have a copy.
I'm just saying, are they on our email?
Yeah.
They are?
They're emailed out too.
They were
right?
emailed out, and it's on the website.
Looks good to me. Motion to approve.
Okay, I have a motion for approval of the June meeting minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the minutes are approved. We'll move on to our information items. We'll start with a discussion of the status of the grant application. So, yeah.
Okay, good morning. Maybe we should, this was, another thing was included in the packet, and I've got two copies, one that's on recycled paper. Okay.
What is this? It's all crossed out.
That's on the other side.
That's the other, that's the,
Well, that side. Oh,
just the table, sorry.
all right.
So we're on notice now, I guess, for this committee, we need to bring our iPads. That's a change.
Maybe,
Okay.
yes, that might be helpful.
All right.
So I put this together, this table that lists a lot of hard work that the staff has done and that the board has done to apply for a whole bunch of different kinds of competitive grants. I didn't put every grant the PSTA gets on here, those that are our formula grants, I didn't include those, but the ones that are discretionary or have some sort of evaluation process. And we have with us today, of course, Harry Glenn from Van Scoyoc and Steve Palmer. Are you on the phone?
I am here, sir.
Okay, Steve from Van
Steve,
Scoyoc.
good morning.
And they can talk a little bit about the federal grants that we're pursuing or have pursued. And then Natalie King and Alan Susky, I think, is on the phone too. Is that right, Alan?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, great. So we wanted to talk about this, and then at your places is a second piece that we drafted after a good discussion with our legislative teams on a tentative strategy. And I know Chair Diamond likes a lot of meat on the bones, as he likes to say, so try to put together a tentative strategy of initiatives we might take over the next several months. So with that, maybe we can start with the federal discussion, and
Sure.
Harry, you can kind of kick us off with the grants and the ideas that we have on the federal side.
Sure. So, unfortunately, we got bad news last week on two fronts. Your application in conjunction with HART for the joint fairbacks, the Tiger Grant application, the Department of Transportation made their announcements last week, and unfortunately, it did not get funded. Tiger Grant did not get funded. There was one for Florida and Broward County, and I think we provided Brad and Cassandra with kind of an analysis of all the Tiger Grant recipients and where they went, a little synopsis of what each of them were. At least Florida did get one this year. It wasn't ours, and that's too bad. And I think Cassandra, they're going to get a debrief here at some point on what were the...
Part is scheduling the debrief, and we'll be part of it.
So get a debrief, find out what happened, and maybe how to, if you go forward in the future, how to approve the application going forward there. We also got, unfortunately, bad news last week on the low-no grants that did not get, PSTA did not get funded for that one either. We also provided an analysis to Brad and Cassandra on all the grants that were funded. I think there was one for Florida. Miami-Dade got one low-no grant. And again, I think Cassandra's scheduling a debrief with
Friday.
FTA to find out, just get some idea of how they could strengthen that for future applications. So that was the bad news. Good news is you still have 2 other applications pending. One for bus and bus facilities, the state of good repair. That one is due to be announced sometime in September. And then you also have one you submitted for what they call the sandbox project, which is kind of looking at alternate or innovative forms of transportation you all have applied for. Both those are expected to be announced sometime in September. The application's already in. The sandbox is one that we talked about in our meeting the other day that is kind of where I think you're a sweet spot on some of the areas that you all are working now to provide that first mile, last mile service and connecting with Uber and the taxi services. And so what we had talked to Brad about was maybe trying to, you had 4 applications pending. It's hard to provide political support for every application because at some point then it kind of dilutes your ability to provide political support. We did have great support on the Tiger Grant application. We had the entire Tampa Bay area members of Congress, including Senator Nelson, signed letters in support of the Tiger Grant application, and we did have good support for the low-no application. The 3 Pinellas County Congressman and Senator Nelson sent letters in support of that. So we did have good support there. We're thinking that because you all have become, or PSTA's become national leaders in the Uber taxi use for first mile, last mile, that might be a good opportunity to provide a little political support for this sandbox proposal as they're making their final decisions. Carolyn Flowers is currently the acting administrator of the FTA, so what we talked to Brad about is maybe trying to get some congressional support and some phone calls into Carolyn Flowers to let her know of their support for the sandbox proposal and why it's so unique what you're doing down here in Pinellas, to make sure she's aware of that and make one last push before they make their final decisions in September on those grants. So I think we'd like to try and execute a little bit of a strategy in August to try and do that. So that's the sort of status of the grants.
Madam Vice Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think my question is more for Steve. You can feel, obviously.
Steve's a smart one.
Well, no, but he's the connection with,
Yep.
with the FTA.
Right.
So, is there a downside to having so many applications in, Steve? Does that dilute our ability to put a real strong focus on one really big one?
No, I don't think so. I really do think it is wise to apply for as many opportunities, grant opportunities as there are. Harry and I met with Brad and recently, and my comment to him was, typically FDA tries very hard to make sure everyone gets something out of this grant process, and I think if you put all your eggs in one basket, that limits that opportunity to try to win something.
Okay, well that makes sense. It is a bit disturbing, though, that we continue to have so much difficulty when there's so much need in this region, and I'm not sure how aware they are in the big picture of how much work is going on locally to try to regionalize our strategy and our direction and our mission. And I just wonder if there's a value in trying to have a one-on-one with this Caroline Flowers woman. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there because I don't know all that much about the federal level, but for sure in the local and state legislature, a lot of your success depends on the strength of the relationships that you build. Do you agree, or?
I agree.
Well, I do agree, and this is Steve. I'll just jump in real quick and say that Carolyn Flowers probably will be acting administrator until January, even if the Democratic candidate wins. In all likelihood, there'll be a new conference in March, the way we met with the director of the planning office about the VRT project, I think it's important to have those kinds of relationships with staff, that run these other programs as well, the low-no and the bus facility programs and the sandbox. So I think, we all have to do a better job, I think, in terms of getting our message to those program administrators rather, so they know more about what PSTA is doing and why it's important that we get that funding.
So do we need one-on-ones with those folks now?
Well, I think as Harry said, it's a great opportunity now that we know we didn't win on Tiger and the Lono, that we should follow up. Harry and I will follow up and get debriefs with with Brad and whoever else on the staff, Cassandra, and get information as to what was good about the applications and where we fell short, so we can try to improve it for the next go around. And then obviously, as Harry said, trying to get the Congressman Jolly and others to weigh in on the sandbox grant application now when there's still an opportunity, I think, is our short-term goal.
Yeah, so if I could just add, we are trying to look at every aspect of it. Steve and Harry are doing a great job sort of analyzing sort of the political aspects and what, maybe a better way to show our regional support, although I thought we did a pretty good job of that by getting that bipartisan letter from everybody. Looking at what other kinds of advocacy we could do. You might have seen there was some media about a phone call that Mayor Kreisman had with Secretary of Transportation Anthony Fox about the Tiger Grant, although that didn't seem to have any positive effect. I personally know and friends with Carolyn Flowers very well. She was the head of, after I had left, she became the head of the Charlotte Transit System and is a transit person. And I'll see her, no doubt, in Los Angeles at the September AFTA conference, if the sandbox is not approved by then. So I will definitely remind her we are the king of Uber here in Pinellas County, and we try to press that as best we can. But as Steve and Harry said, it takes all fronts. It takes a very strong application, I think. Having political support from Congressman Jolly, also putting a call in, will be a great, I think, something important that a lot of other transit systems are doing. Winning transit systems do as well, and then making sure, as I say, that they're just aware that we exist and what we're trying to do here. It is disappointing, that we seem to keep striking out on the Tiger, no matter what we try. But we'll find out as much as we can on the debriefings if there was anything specific that we should have done.
Other comments? Yes.
Do we know how big the pot is that they broke up for Tiger?
Yeah, it was $500 million.
It was $500 million for Tiger, yes. But that goes to that's the whole range of transportation initiatives. It involves ports and rail and bus service and infrastructure. It's the most competitive of the pots. And that one is made at a higher level than the FTA. That's at the secretarial level. So Secretary Fox ultimately, I think, is in charge of making those final decisions. So, and if you recall, last year Florida received no Tiger grant, and so they got quite a bit of flack from the Florida delegation that Florida should be considered and given higher consideration in the future. And so Florida did get one. It was on the East Coast in Broward County, which was a good thing. At least Florida.
It was $19 million or something.
It was
Less than
10. I think it was $11 million. 10 something.
Out of $500 million, that's not a very big number.
No.
For Florida.
No, but in that case,
If I can, this is Steve, I'll just add that for the Tiger program, there were $500 million eligible for PDO in the way, but there were over $9 billion in applications.
It's a very competitive program. Some of them are very large. I think in the last go around, the largest one was $25 million. I think Steve was the largest one for Charlotte. So it's very competitive. Pinellas County applied 3 times for the Pinellas Trail bike project and did get funded. This was did a great job in regionalizing the application with Hart and PSTA together, getting folks from both sides of the bay to write letters of support. The entire greater Tampa Bay area delegation all support. I mean, I think you did all you could politically. It's a tough competition. But one of the really important things is to get this debrief, as Steve mentioned, and to learn, because there'll be other applications going in for Lono and trying to figure out what happened there. If you decide to do Tiger again, what happened there? How can you make them better and continue to promote the regional, as Commissioner Long's talking about, trying to continue to promote the regional aspect of these. And again, you still have two pending applications, so hopefully we can exert a little bit of influence on at least one of those.
Is there a theme or any kind of common denominator that maybe they're looking at any particular time that, they're focused on certain things?
Well, for the Tiger, they've really focused in the last couple of years on this what they call ladders of opportunity, which is trying to use transportation to get people to school and to work and to help with to drive the economy through transportation. They're trying to use your transportation system to help get people to their jobs, to create more jobs, to connect businesses. That's been a theme that we've even had and when we did the Tiger Grant application last year for the Pinellas Trail, they wanted to hear about how people would use the bike trails to get to their work, so we talked about places of employment that were along the bike trail, and we had people who were along the bike trail write letters of support for the Tiger Grant application, employers along the trail. And so, having the Chambers of Commerce, they supported your Tiger Grant application this year, I think is important to talk about why it's important for your economy, your local employers.
Seems like they're buzzwords or something.
Yeah, and there will be a new administration, so when the next Tiger Grant application process comes forward next year, there'll be a new administration. They may have a new set of buzzwords. There'll be new people running MTA, and the Secretary of Transportation will be new, and so there may be some new buzzwords, and we need to keep an eye out for that in the future.
So I was just going to make reference to those new rules that the feds just promulgated, that the window's open now for us to be making comments into that. And it seems to me that given that we work really hard, and we all are, on a regional connectivity and integration of our transportation options, that ought to be a real emphasis that we stress going forward in terms of how we do our grant applications. Because apparently that's the way they're going to start incentivizing. So we have to be able to show by our actions and our legislative agenda that that's what we're working on.
Definitely.
A good comment. I think it's, first of all, I think it's terrific that we are, I think it'd be good to put into context a little bit, we talk about this with the full board, where we are in the status of our efforts to chase these grants versus where we've been as an agency years ago. Because I feel like, I'm still new to PSTA, but I feel like we have come so far there are a lot of good ideas on this sheet that we're chasing, and it's obviously an incredibly competitive process. And I feel like we've come very far in generally in this area in terms of federal grant applications, and now having a political team and thinking about how we have a political strategy around each one. I really like the idea of putting some efforts in on the first mile, last mile Uber sandbox application that's pending, because I do think we've gotten some good positive buzz on our work on that issue. And I guess the other piece that I was thinking about is just getting feedback, figuring out a way to get feedback on the technical aspects of the application and how to make that part stronger as well. Because obviously with any grant application there's the political piece, but there's also the ideas and the way they're presented in a compelling way, and trying to analyze and get feedback as to, what are they looking for, and so I'm glad that you guys are going to go through that process too. And
we're trying to get copies of every winning grant,
right,
from around the country.
I think that's great. And I think if maybe there is somewhere in your travel travels of the transit world some grant, some federal grant guru that you want to
That wins 100% of the time?
that you
Maybe.
want to associate or invite to meet with us, or but I think we should be positive about the fact that we're out there competing for these. It's obviously extremely competitive. The Broward County one, I think we have to put in context of a long, dry spell for the entire state, and there's one that hit, and it's small in comparison to the total pot. So, I just think we have to keep at it and not miss the opportunities to continue to improve our process and take shots when we can. So.
And Mr. Chairman, if I could just add, to add the sunny side of the picture, don't forget the BRT. Brad and the staff done a great job on the BRT and moving forward, working with the FTA. You had visits with the FTA when you were up there. That moved the conversation along. I think you have a great, as Steve said, a great relationship with the FTA from those meetings. I think they're moving your project through the process, and so there are federal funds coming down the road for the BRT project, and so you've done a really good job at working with the FTA, and that'll build that relationship with the FTA. So, don't forget, you did lose on these two, but the BRT is moving forward. It's a little ways out there yet, but it's a positive for the PSTA.
So to that end, do we have a projected schedule for when we will go and reinforce those relationships again?
You do, and that's one of the things we're talking about here is getting you up there next spring. You have some, I think the board has some big, and Brian and Cassandra are better on this than I am. You have some big decisions to make here this fall on the BRT project going forward as you're moving that through the FTA process. And you're not going to submit that final proposal till July of next year. So the funding for the BRT would come in the fiscal 19 budget request. So Congress will be working next year on fiscal 18. So it'll be the process after that. So you have some time yet on that. So these funds are a little ways down the road. But you all have some decisions you have to make on the BRT route. But I think one of the things we laid out here is, I don't think, if you flip on the back side of this page, there's a schedule here coming back up in the spring.
Oh, I didn't look at that.
Yeah, there's a schedule here coming back in the spring to have you all come up and talk to the new administration, the new people who are in charge in the federal government, the FTA, the Department of Transportation, and the existing and new members of Congress, and talk about your agenda and give the status on the BRT project.
Well, can we talk about this timeline next, Brad? We're sort of discussing it anyway. Is that okay?
So you see on the timeline, we did look at different ways in which we can reach out to the folks in D.C. Now, of course, as Harry was describing earlier, the folks that are in D.C. are not in D.C. I saw Congressman Jolly in Gulfport last night. They're here, and they're mostly going to be here back in their home districts till the election. So I think we put on there, perhaps try to meet with them if the NDC were here, but you see in the month of August, in italicized, those are the federal items, that we would try to meet with both Congressman Bilirakis, especially as his new district covers more of Pinellas County, invite him. I think this is a great idea that Harry had to invite him to come on a tour of PSTA and meet some of our folks, invite maybe some of the legislative committee members when he's available to come, and highlight to him that we are planning to expand our Pinellas Park pilot on Uber to the whole county, so that would include northern Pinellas County as well, to highlight that. Second, you see the bottom of the last thing in August is to maybe have a Skype call to Carolyn Flowers with Congressman Jolly. He's open to doing that, and kind of up the technology a little bit more from the Mayor Kreisman old-time phone call. Maybe that.
Well, I think that's
that
a
would
neat
be good.
idea. I was just thinking about the fact that you mentioned your relationship with Administrator Flowers, and I'm wondering, what we think this decision on this grant will be made by September. Is that so? I mean, is there any thought in trying to go see her in person before then, or is that
might be possible. I mean, I don't know, I look to you, Harry and Steve, to see whether,
I mean, I know that it's probably not easy to get on someone's schedule like that in a matter of a couple weeks, but I love the Skype call idea with our hometown congressman. I think that's great. So.
yeah. There's another, the middle item there on, in August that we listed is a sort of a separate issue, but an important sort of legislative issue for PSTA. Right now, the folks that are taking Uber or a cab to connect to the bus, which is our pilot program, they're not being counted as rides toward the formulas that the federal government uses to allocate our formula grant funds. They're not considered to have anything to do with transit, because the transit rules were written pre-Uber, and they have.
Well, they need to be updated.
They do need to be updated. That's what we keep telling them. But this is going to take a little bit of an effort, I think, to get FTA to move in this way.
Another reason to have the visit with Carolyn.
Exactly. To try to get with her. I don't know. I think she would be supportive of it, knowing her. There are some other transit systems that are copying us now. Philadelphia and San Diego are doing exactly what we've done with Uber. And so the momentum is growing. I'm sure this can get done. It's just, we want to highlight it. And I think Congressman Jolly and Bill Rackus would be supportive of it.
Well, why don't we try to be the first in the country to do that?
We are with it. It would be available. The idea would be to change the rules so that all connections could be for everyone in the United States.
And what we're trying to figure out now, I think the first step, we talked, Steve and I talked to Brad about this the other day, and the first step, I think, is to talk to your regional, I think Cassandra's in touch with the regional office to find out what is their interpretation. Because you haven't been told, no, we don't count those yet. I'm not sure. We don't know what the actual policy is. We have to get a definition from FTA on what the actual policy is on counting these riders.
But they may not have one.
Right, correct. So then the question is, do you do it, Steve can help us through this, do you do it through the regulatory process? Would it be something that needs to be changed at a regulatory side? Or will Congress need to step in and actually enact legislation to mandate the change? So that's what we're trying to, starting with the agency to figure out what their current policy is, if they have one.
Well, and the van pool's been through this before. So when van pools first started, they weren't counted either. And so we had to take a new look, and that was allowed because it was a shared ride. And so we had to create a new making the case process for why these should count. And so we're working on FTA region and then take it to.
So when they changed that for the van pool, did they do that in a regulatory way, or did they do that with congressional action?
In a regulatory way.
Well, that.
It's a model for what we might
Yeah.
try to do. Yeah.
Is there any advantage to teaming with the other municipalities in the country that are going to face the same situation to Philadelphia? And I mean, because it's obviously not counting for them.
Yeah. I've already reached out to a number of transit folks, and then also to FTA, and as well as APTA. There's a lot of folks working on this and know that it's an issue.
And even though they don't count, we obviously, I would assume, can quantify it from our end?
Yeah.
What that number is? And do we just know the number of rides, or does that include the number of people on that incident?
It's a good question. I don't know.
Ben and I getting the Uber together, is that just one, or is that?
I don't think we.
I didn't know if it gives you that.
I do not believe that we know that. If you have a rider, if you have a partner, we may not be counting that, or Uber may not be telling us.
Yeah, didn't know how they count that.
Well, I think it's a good idea.
So we'd like to take what the FTA tells your staff here and then educate the congressional committee members and the committee staff about what the situation is, what the problems, and get their advice. I mean, Steve, I don't know if you have anything to add. There may be some opportunities in RAPID legislation to even get some report language to encourage FTA to look at this issue and either report back to Congress or provide suggestions, or you might be able to do something like that as Congress is finishing up its business for the year. I don't know, Steve, did you have anything further on that one?
No, nothing more than that. I think that's a really good suggestion. That's something we can pursue as part of the omnibus appropriations bill.
And Congressman Jolly's on the subcommittee that funds FTA, so we might be able to get some suggestive language in that bill at the end of the year.
Okay, so let's keep going here through the timeline, Brad.
Yeah, so just maybe a final word on the federal piece. The good news about the 2 grants that we were unsuccessful in acquiring is the projects that were going to be funded by those grants are still moving forward. The Lono grant, we are hopeful that the Pinellas County Commission will support BP oil spill monies to buy the charging stations. And so we'll move forward with the pilot of 2 electric buses. We're very hopeful, even though we didn't get the Lono grant. And then on the Farebox project, that is moving forward with the first phase of a regional fare system coming out next month. And we hope to advertise it and have a big kickoff of that at the August board meeting to talk about that project. So that's still a very positive news. Again, whether or not we actually have a trip to D.C. between now and November, the election may not be of value, but to try to meet with all the congressional members here when they're here in Pinellas. And I think it would be great to have a legislative committee member come with me whenever we get those meetings scheduled.
Great.
So now moving, if it's okay, moving down this timeline on the state piece.
Any other discussion on federal issues? Okay. Well, thanks, you guys. That was a great report. And
I have a question,
okay.
and this is just real quick on the grants, and I think to your point about showing that we have, even though we may not be winning, that we are moving the bar forward.
Right.
With, was it $90 billion in applications? Is that what it was for the money?
Yes.
$9 billion.
$9 billion.
$9 billion, a lot, still a lot. But I mean, do you either get it or not get it? Is there a scoring that goes into it that we're this close? I don't know how that works. That we're, to your point, that we're this close to grabbing it. I don't know how, or do they just say yes, no, yes, no, yes?
Cassandra, come join us at the table. Because you've been running this, and you need to be a part of this discussion. Sorry, I feel like I'm the teacher pulling the student back to the background.
Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think they actually do a scoring where like 0 to 100, and if you were 70 and above, you got funded. I don't think that's how
Or
they.
is it a short list, or how do they narrow the field?
No, they typically the review will start with on transfer projects with FTA career staff. They do farm out all the applications to people who have an expertise in those individual areas for those grants. And each on the process on the way up, they rate them based on what they think is highly competitive, and not competitive. It gets up to the political level appointees and then finally secretary. When you get a debrief from the staff, it's from the career staff, and they typically will tell you were highly competitive and made it to the secretary, or didn't, or you weren't. And so you get and they will tell you where you fell short. Like, we didn't think, the technical aspects on buying buses, your buses weren't as old as some of the other systems, things like that. So you don't get every quantitative detail spelled out for you. You get enough information as to whether or not you should revise your application for next year.
Well, so it's at least that there's some measurement that goes on to know if you just really blew it, or you were pretty competitive. So
The last two rounds, our Tiger application that went in last year and the Pinellas Trail application last year were both told to be highly recommended. Or I guess actually somehow the Pinellas Trail, which was the exact same application 2 years in a row, got highly recommended 1 year and then went down to just plain old recommended the next year.
But we'll find that out. In other words, we'll find out where we. Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to put our efforts in context. I mean, I think this is hard stuff we're trying to do, and I feel positive about
Is there a lot of
the
people
work
sitting
that
here
we're trying to do, even if we were unsuccessful on those two specific things.
There's a lot of
So,
people that didn't get.
Yeah, it sounds like
And you
it.
learn
The
every time you
500
have
million
to- 8.5
awards
billion.
out of the 9
Well, and you
billion.
learn every time you
Yeah,
apply for
sure.
one of these. If you're successful, great. If you're not successful, you learn, and that helps you improve the next time.
Right.
And then you need to make sure that you're paying attention to what the theme of the year is.
Correct.
So
Right.
you can have a
Right.
great application one year and be very, very close, and they'll tell you, oh, you were this close. And then next year, do exactly what they said to do, and you won't make it because if you're not paying attention to the theme and adding in things. So we're gonna take another approach to the grant writing.
You gotta kiss a lot of frogs.
Well, and
Yeah.
just start writing the next one now. So we'd like to bring to you, what do we think, so next year when Tiger comes out, which project we're gonna do, and start that already, so that when the theme comes out, we're tweaking and not writing.
Well, okay. Anything else further on the federal issues? Additional ones?
Not,
Okay.
not really. I just really think that we're making a difference, because for those of us that have been involved in the legislative process, it is not easy. And almost everything is very competitive. There's only so much money, and there's lots of requests for it. And I guess what my biggest concern is, though, is that maybe we should invite Carolyn Flowers to come here and see how desperately we need.
I think we had talked about that, hadn't we?
What?
I think we had talked about that at one point.
I just think the more that we can expose our region to the folks that are so removed from us, the better they understand how hard, it is to go from point A to point Z. I don't know. What do you think, Steve?
Absolutely. I think the more, I think that should be one of our priorities next year. I know, when you met with the woman who's just doing the BRT evaluation, you all invited her to come down, and she was very flattered by that. So I think it's important, that we do that early next year with the political appointees, just to get our request in along with everybody else as early as possible.
Yeah.
I like that.
And that could be done jointly.
Sure.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Well, there will be, the point is there will be a new administrator, obviously, with the new administration, and I think that also presents a nice opportunity to, I'm sure there'll be lots of requests on that person's schedule and lots of demands on that person's time, but that presents a nice opportunity to say, we'd like you to come down and meet with us. So that's great. And of course, Brad, having already have a relationship now with Carolyn Flowers, arranging some sort of meeting, even if it's by Skype, in August, so we get one shot to make our case on the sandbox proposal. I think that's great. If you want anybody else, I don't know how you might pitch that, but we're all available to help you strategize or put that plan
Thank you.
together. So,
Thank you.
Call them from an Uber, Skype them.
Yeah. Well,
Hi, Carolyn. I'm in an Uber.
I think we're scheduled to go today until 10:30. Is that right? So I want us to keep kind of moving along here.
I got a meeting at noon right around the corner. So.
Okay. I know other members of the committee have some other time constraints. So why don't we move on to our state discussion? And Brad?
Okay, so if you flip back to the grants, the grant table, the state ones are listed there, and we are having, I would say, a little bit more success so far this year with our state applications. I was told after we sent this packet out that we actually got 2 other small state grants as well, that technically were competitive, that I forgot to put on here. But most
What were they?
now I'm forgetting what they're called. I think it was a $15,000 grant we got for transportation disadvantaged support, and I guess the Rights of Wellness might have been, I'm not sure if we've actually gotten yet. But that was on here. That was for $250,000, and we actually didn't submit that. Neighborly Care Network submitted it with us as a partner. We got to find out whether or not that's going to work again. Anyway, we received a $300,000 grant that the PSTA board voted and approved last week from the State Commission for Transportation Disadvantaged. Thanks to work and a strategy that we led for the state with Patty Johnson's leadership, to increase the state funding for transportation disadvantaged back during the legislative session. The legislature approved adding $4 million to the transportation disadvantaged pot of funds, and the legislature earmarked that $4 million, essentially $2 million for rural transit systems, $1.75 million, I believe it is, or maybe $1.8 million for competitive applications for anyone in the state to apply, and then $200,000 for a study. You might recall this, that we pushed to have a study of the long-term method of allocating transportation disadvantaged funds, so that perhaps we could make the case that urban areas have the vast majority of need, and that be taken into consideration in the formula as a long-term strategy. So the Commission for Transportation Disadvantaged issued a notice of grants, and PSA got the largest grant out of the competitive $1.8 million piece that we were eligible for, $300,000 for our pilot for our low-income riders who get a TD bus pass, which is about close to 6,000 people in Pinellas County, being able to ride Uber at night, or a cab at night when the buses are not running. And we announced this at the Don Cesar 2 weeks ago. The program started on Monday, 3 days ago, and no, I'm forgetting. I think we've gotten close to 30 people already signed up for the program, going about 50-50 cab and Uber. Of course, a lot of low-income people do not have a smartphone. We're trying to lower the barriers. Unlike a normal Uber person, you don't need a credit card because it's free, and basically PSTA is signing you up. That's the way the program kind of works on Uber. So so far so good. It's going really well with about 50-50, and we are getting people that have jobs, who mostly have jobs that they maybe take the bus to work, but then the bus stops running, and so they take Uber or the cab home. The State Commission is very proud of this, and they are certainly hoping this succeeds. One of the reasons for that is that their program is reviewed by the Senate Transportation Committee, and Chairman Senator Brandes, who we all know is a very strong component of Uber, so he's very supportive of this as well. So that is going very well so far. I mean, it's 3 days old. And the staff has done a great job. Chris Cochran on Costanza staff is my Uber guy, and he is constantly dealing with the folks at Uber to try to get this program up and running.
How do we make people aware that the TD program is available?
Good question.
So we have a fairly captive audience on this, because each of those just under 6,000 people show up at one of our transit centers to pick up their monthly bus pass. You have to go to either Park Street in Clearwater, Pinellas Park Transit Center, or Grand Central in St. Petersburg. We do have some people that you can mail it to, but every single one of those folks, and almost all of them, come on the first or second or third of the month because they want to ride as much as possible. So there's very long lines this week at the centers, and each one of those is getting our brochure on this new program. And then they have to call our customer service staff, and they've been trained, and then they're signing them up for the program. So I think more and more people will sign up for the program.
Is it possible for you, I'm sorry.
No.
Is it possible for you, Brad, to give us, as we have our board meetings, that you can give us an update on how that's working and how many people are signing up? I think that'd be interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
Measure the success.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think when on day one, my staff was kind of freaked out that we got 17 people signed up. They thought we were going to be overwhelmed.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, I mean, the one issue, and the finance committee brought this up when we approved it this past month, was, this is a pilot program in and of itself because we got this grant, this $300,000 grant, and if it's wildly successful and the grant funds run out, the Transportation Commission, the Transportation Disadvantage Commission, has indicated a willingness to re-up or to provide us with additional funds if it's hugely successful, and they are telling every other applicant across the state that they need to do exactly what PSTA has done.
Well, to that end, then you must be tracking, are you tracking daily?
I was gonna say.
How many people are
Yeah, do
signing
we have a
up?
gas gauge on that
I
thing?
mean, we ought to really promote this heavily, right, throughout, I mean, is it
Yeah.
throughout the county?
It's throughout the county, and it's still in its infancy. It is 2 days old, and I believe that actually, I'm not sure if anyone was eligible to take a ride. It's only available from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. at night. Low-income riders can ride for free home from work or wherever they are at night when the buses aren't running. I don't think Monday night anyone was. There might have been some people signed up for the program, but I don't think anyone actually rode it Monday. But I think we maybe had some folks last night who tried to ride it.
And to the commissioner's point, I mean, do we know what that $300,000 will get us? Do we have like an estimate of, that's 20 rides a month? I mean, so kind of a gas gauge to know that, man, we are sucking this money out fast. Do we have a feel for what that $300,000 might get us?
Yes, we've tried to calculate average, the average trip, etc. And I think we're going to be just fine for this program to last a year, approximately 1 year, at least at the rate so far after 2 days. If 50, 75 people will sign up today and tomorrow each, then I'll start worrying. But,
You could see a real boost during the in the fall and winter when the northern folks come down here. Maybe.
yeah, possibly. Although most of the folks that are qualifying for the Transportation Disadvantage Pass are year-round workers, low-income workers in Pinellas County. It's about 25% of our overall bus ridership are these folks, and then they just need a way to get home. Not all of them work late at night,
Well, I think that's great, and I think getting an update at the end of August at our board meeting, after we've been up for a couple weeks, will be a great time to sort of hear how we're.
Check in.
Yeah. So,
I mean, one of the key issues I recognize is that we're getting a lot of good buzz and press about our partnership, being the first in the nation with Uber, but it is quite difficult to actually explain in a way that people can retain what exactly we're doing, or how to use it, all the different
are you
things.
talking
we've
about
got.
riders?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because they're not using Uber.
Right.
Prior to this opportunity.
Right.
Okay.
They need to be brought up to speed on what Uber is and
Well,
how to
maybe
use
Chris
it.
Cochran can talk to Uber about that. I mean, I feel like Uber would have an interest in being able to explain to our riders.
They do.
Well, and we've actually discussed having kind of an opportunity where they would come in and do like a Uber 101, kind of be an
good.
information piece. It's just a matter of whatever however this rolls out. We've definitely, talked about that at our last meeting. Would that be an opportunity that either the board and or the constituents that you serve would benefit from?
I think it would be great because 2 weeks ago we called for an Uber ride to go to the airport and they never showed up. was so irritated. But, we waited till the last minute and then decided, well, come on, let's jump in the car, we're gonna miss our plane.
Well, that is very unusual.
I've never heard of a
I
not.
I
Say,
don't
gee,
know.
you can GPS, you can usually see
You
them
can see
coming.
where they are usually, but, well, that's great. Let's keep rolling here.
Keep rolling. So,
before we get
we want to obviously capitalize on that success further and develop key materials in that regard. RSA, our new list of consultants, is also representing Uber. So
Makes it easy.
They tell my story.
Well, if you give me the actual date and time, they can look it up. That's the beauty of Uber, is that they can actually track the specific driver, specific request. And did you put when it didn't show, did you actually go in and actually?
Okay, I'm going to move us along here. But I do want, we can follow
We can
up
help
on
you with that.
after the meeting, but let's see.
So, moving on to the timeline here
the
and the state strategies that we've identified, I wanted to highlight a couple things. Number one is, as far as our legislative priorities go, we had, as you will hopefully you will agree, I think a very successful joint workshop with the Pinellas MPO, the Forward Pinellas Board last Friday. And the idea is that we would be working really much closer together as they approve a list of top 10 transportation projects, the priorities of Pinellas County at the September meeting. In the past, PSA has kind of gone it alone, right? And the MPO hasn't really done anything as far as setting priorities. For transit, they've never done anything like that. This is the first time they've done that. So as far as the PSTA board adopting a set of legislative priorities, I would like it, and I know Wick Blanton is supportive of this, that it dovetail with the priorities that the MPO come up with, so we can really kind of maximize the value of that. These are the top projects that Pinellas County has, and then the legislative strategy or the legislative priorities on the transit side that we approve are supported by that. So that's on schedule to be approved by the MPO in September. That's one sort of angle. Second angle is meeting with our good friends, Senator Latvala and Senator Brandis, who obviously both have very strong interest in key issues that we're dealing with on transportation. One, Senator Latvala is maybe not such a strong supporter of Uber, and we are implementing services, this grant that I just talked about for low-income folks, and then in the fall, a expansion of our Pinellas Park pilot to be countywide throughout the county, including in Senator Latvala's district. So we want to make sure that we are in good communication with him on that. In addition, of course, is his focus on consolidation of PSTA and HART, or that issue, and then how that dovetails with sort of the other issues that I know Commissioner Long you're working on from a regional perspective, etc. So we have on here to meet to try to get a meeting with Senator Latvala, and I think Senator Brandis as well, in September. Is what Alan, who maybe you're still on the phone, has indicated that those folks, or at least Senator Latvala, may not be able to get with him in August, but try to get with him as soon as he's back from Maine and touch base with him about these priorities, talk to him about our previous priorities of the Clearwater Beach to TIA Express, which he was supportive of before, etc., and kind of get a lay of the land from Senator Latvala before the PSTA board adopts its legislative priorities. We're thinking at the October PSTA meeting.
Let me just hear from Alan for that first.
Go ahead, Alan.
Yeah, and I'm just going to say, big picture, I think what we've discussed is, we were very, very successful last year. I think a number of reasons. We were able to push a lot of these priorities to include the transportation TIA, all of those things. Those summer meetings that we did with the delegation before things really got heavy, I think was very, very important. We're obviously, knowing that was successful, we're going to replicate that this year. So working with Brad and staff and the board members who may want to attend those or may need to attend those because of a certain relationship with someone, we're going to be working August, September, maybe even a little bit into October, depending on the member in the election cycle, to meet with all those members. Obviously, we know a number of, at least the Pinellas County delegations, that don't have elections or have, are very, very, very likely to be reelected. So a number of those meetings we can knock out now before the election. So really replicating that, meeting with everyone, particularly as Brad mentioned, Senator Brandis and Senator Latvala, very different views on transportation as we discussed many, many times, and don't need to rehash. But I think there are parts of our agenda, just as we did in the last two sessions, there are parts of our agenda that both of them can support, even if it's separately. If Senator Latvala, I know Natalie can certainly speak more to the Uber issue, represent Uber than I can, but I know that is an issue that is very likely to be solved this session from a statewide perspective, and may not be as big of an issue for him going forward. I think we continue to tell him that this, although Uber is kind of the thing that's being promoted, this is a TNC pilot. This involves taxis. Everyone's on a level playing field. She has always said is an issue. So I don't know that he's going to support and jump up and down and say that it's a great thing that's going countywide, but I don't think he's going to knock it for either. I think he would find that somewhat hard to do. Senator Brandon certainly supports it. TIA Clearwater, we've still working with Representative Latvala. He's been a very strong champion of trying to fix some of those issues in his district there, obviously working with his father on that. So from him leading the charge on a delegation letter, a letter of support that would go to the district, to DOT main office here in Tallahassee to support hopefully the MPO's prioritization of that project. We think that's key. That's what the district told us. The key to getting funding support, not only from the legislature, but also the key from being vetoed by the governor, because it is, we are asking for recurring money. This isn't the same as the Central Avenue DRP, which is different. We think is really key. So once we know some of those positions of the MPO, kind of in concert with that at the same time, we'll be working with the delegation, not only on the summer meetings to get in front of everyone and just let them know how things are going and where we see the agency going forward, and we'll be working on that letter as well. So that's kind of the overview of the meetings, and again, I can't stress how important it is to do those as soon as possible over the summer, so that you're in front of them early and often, and we can begin to follow up as we get closer. Once the election happens, things will begin to move very, very quickly here in Tallahassee.
And who's on point, Alan? That's a great report. Who's on point to set those up? Is it, okay, Natalie's?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, Alan.
We'll be working together on all of this.
Okay.
And in addition to that, so as we are going and meeting with the 10 different elected officials that are part of the Pinellas delegation, we'll also be looking at who are from surrounding counties. Again, we've talked with you about kind of some of the other leadership that we are rich with that are going to be in key leadership positions. So we'll also be looking outside of our delegation for potential opportunities to plant the seed, to get that heat, kind of vet some issues with them. And so as we work through August, September, October, and then you guys finalize your legislative agenda, we will look at a second round. We didn't put it on here, but we will then look and strategize as to where the follow-up is needed. So as we have gotten the feedback on the first round of meetings, we would then advise you guys based on those whom we now need to go back and circle back with now that it's final, and go with them. We're also going to have an opportunity and Alan, maybe you've heard about this, I haven't, but the Pinellas County delegation will host their pre-session meeting,
right.
And then you'll have to decide,
Right.
We'll decide from the timing of that, do we go present there, what is that level of activity? So there's going to be some touch points that we'll make sure that we're hitting all of them so that we don't miss any opportunities to continue to build and maintain those relationships and tell the story.
Yeah, I think on the delegation meeting, very similar to last year, it's something that we have to do, essentially. I think we just need to make sure that we have a plan on exactly what we're going to talk about, what we're going to brief them on, and what we're going to ask. And it'll be key to have those early meetings before that, so that we can know if there are we'll have a better sense of where the delegation is after those initial meetings, and then we can kind of formulate our plan for the overall delegation meeting.
And I just have one more follow-up question. I know other commissioners do too. Is there some way we can have a process to see, as board members, when those meetings are occurring, and we'll do the pre-meetings? Because I know different board members do have relationships. Our Clearwater representatives may want to come to the meeting with, Representative Latvala, and so. I don't know, maybe Brad, you can circulate, once you guys put a little schedule together, circulate it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Last year, I think we did have pretty good representation. Most of the meetings that I had were with a board member from that area.
So
the good news is, as we schedule these, because again, we're going to make a first pass at the list, because, for example, not knowing right now who the replacement for Joyner is going to be, we may not schedule that one, right? So we're going to do the ones that make sense now, and then we will figure out once the primaries happen, then we can maybe trigger a few more, and then once the general. So it'll be based on when we have known quantities.
that sounds good.
And then we can give the list, and then the good news is it takes a couple of weeks usually to get on their calendars. So once we target times, we can then communicate.
Okay. Other questions?
The timing, I'd like to make sure that we bring in the Chamber of Clearwater Regional Chamber of Commerce and the TIA, as well as city lobbyist, is Pete Dunbar.
Right.
Martha, too. So we're teaming this, but apparently we need to wait until we get the MPO priority
In September.
to fall.
Okay, and that's a good point, and you've made that.
So sequencing.
You've made that point before, and it's a good point. The fact that we have Pia and Martha, and other interests in the business community.
The coalition will be important, and the good news, Ron and I work very closely with Martha and Pete on other issues, so we know them very well, and that will be easy for us to do.
I just want to get our city manager to be
Part
pushing
of
from that side.
Right. Great. Okay.
Yes, well, I have several things that I want you to, or that I want to share, and hopefully you'll help me organize this in a thoughtful way, and especially for you, Alan, because we have not had a chance to talk. But it's probably important to let you know that I have been appointed to the MPO, and so my appointment is effective now. And I would like to make sure I'm thoroughly briefed on this whole TIA Clearwater Beach thing with the details. I mean, at a high level, I'm certainly aware, but I'd like to become more knowledgeable about it. Number two, I have been in an ongoing way for almost a year now, meeting with a lot of legislators, both here in Pinellas and over in Hillsborough. And because I'm going on MPO, I just yesterday had a very lengthy meeting with Whit Blanton. And he and I and Jim Kennedy, who's the chair of the MPO and will be until January, have been collaborating on a meeting with the editorial board at the Times, which will take place later this month. And so, in that regard, stay tuned, because there's so much going on. I just haven't had an opportunity to, talk to you about it yet, Harry, or I've been trying to brief Alan for, I don't know, ever, and he's so busy. But beyond that, I know, I did stand him up, and I have done my mea culpas a million times.
Your Uber didn't come that morning.
But I do think it's really important that we coordinate. That was a great suggestion you had, Bill, because Pete and Martha are also the lobbyists for Pinellas County government, and I've shared a lot of the transportation big picture plans with them. But as you might imagine, it is evolving, and now there's another iteration as a result of my meeting yesterday with Whit. But my point being that I think it's important want to put together that works, on a weekly basis. You'll touch base with those folks that represent Pinellas and Hillsborough, because we'd like to, I think it would be meaningful if Pinellas County government, as well as Hillsborough County government, could put these things, whatever they turn out to be, in their legislative packages as well. And I think that'd be very powerful. If both big governments, both PSTA and ART, maybe the city of Clearwater, and whoever else we touch with our legislative agenda, seems to me that's a great opportunity to build some strength in our messaging, I think. And the last thing I wrote down here so I wouldn't forget, Alan or Natalie, whenever you can, I know it won't be available until after the election, but getting those delegation public hearing dates would be really critical, both for here and for Hillsborough.
Yeah, we'll definitely work on that and get those out to everyone.
Okay, well, that sounds like a great plan. So as I understand the timeline, we'll be working on those meetings, and then we'll be looking at a draft of our legislative priorities in the October meeting. Is that correct, Brad? So
Yeah.
with the idea that it would come before the full board at the end of October.
Correct.
Okay. I think that gives us plenty of time, given that the session starts in March.
Famous last words.
But I feel like we've been there before. So, but that sounds good. Now, just one last question on this Senator Latvala issue with the interest in the merger. Can you guys just talk a little bit about? I know we're going to set up this meeting with him in September, but kind of your view as to where we are with that, because I remember the last time I spoke to him in the middle of the last session, so it's been several months. I mean, he made it very clear. I mean, he kind of looked across the table, pointed his finger, and said, "You guys are going to do this, or you won't see a dime from the state of Florida." So I just wanted to hear from Alan or Natalie on that.
Can I, before you start, Alan, can I just pose the question to you that he asked me when I met with him, given the way in which both agencies were originally developed? PSTA was done by a local bill. PART was done by a general bill. So when I met with him, I'd already ran that issue past our county attorney in terms of what's a method, how he always wants to hear the solution.
And just to say a little bit more too, I mean, what we had talked about in our previous meetings was the fact that we as an agency have always been open to finding ways to, we're not opposed to ideas about collaboration. I mean, we want a regional approach. Obviously, we all know, we've all been working on this. So we're not in any way, resistant or hostile to these ideas. If anything, I think there's a lot of support for them, and I just want to make sure politically I sort of understand where we are.
Yeah. Well, let me give you the latest update, and quite frankly, there's not too much of an update on his previous position. I'll say this: I had lunch with him. Well, after our meeting, we met on Friday there at PSTA with Brad, and after that, I had about a 2-hour meeting with him to go over a number of things on a number of topics. And when this came up, he certainly, continues to think that a merger. I guess I'll put it the way I've been putting it over the last year or so, is that he still believes that a merger is needed and is an effective way of moving transportation forward and consolidating some things and saving some costs. But he still has yet to define what a merger means. What is that? Does that mean just the two agencies become one, period, end of story? Or is it more of a more cooperative relationship in some areas, and like the fare box that you all are doing together, and a number of other
just jump in on that point real quick?
Yeah, sure.
So, I mean, on that issue, I feel like that's where we need to be proactive and give him some points, and maybe we need to develop them of things we're already doing cooperatively with Hart and other ideas we have, you know, of ways we can work better regionally.
Right.
I mean, in other words, to not say we're not doing anything. I mean, here's what we've already done, and here are some other ideas that we have, and we're open to other suggestions. I mean,
right. No, I agree with you completely, and I'm going to reinforce what you just said. With the only thing I can really say as an update is in our entire conversation, and it wasn't until Friday. I know Natalie and Ron were there on Wednesday as well. There was an event that we were all together at with him. Friday, I saw him on Saturday at another event, and I went with him on Monday again before I left. We talked about a number of things, and every time that this has come up, where it used to be, as you said, Chair, where he would point across the table and say, "You're going to do this." I don't want to say that his tone softened on it, but I think that he is beginning to realize that he is going to have so many things on his plate as the appropriations chairman over the next few years that he's not going to be able to get them all done. So I think in his mind, again, he did not say this directly, but it was certainly in his tone and in the range of topics that he wanted to talk to me about and go over, is that he has got so many priorities and he's being pushed in so many directions. He's really going to have to focus, at least the things that he cares about personally. Because remember, he's going to have a Senate president who wants to get certain things done, minority leaders, other members who he's going to have to help accomplish some things. Because he can't solely focus on just his priorities. I think that although he still sees it that way, I think that by doing what you just described, we are able to provide them with some direction and some things where the talk of just a total merger may not be as high of a priority for him as it was going out of the last session, simply because, not because he doesn't believe in it, but because he is going to be inundated with so many things. He's going to try to fix so many issues. He wanted to talk a lot purposely. The one thing that we talked the most about was fixing the transportation disadvantage formula. Those are the types of things.
good.
And I think to your point, Chair, and what Alan is saying is that I think if we can give him something proactive that, and I don't want to use, this is probably the wrong word, but appease him, give him something that can be at least a partial win that he can say that he made successful progress on, I think that would behoove us greatly because we are being proactive. And it also will articulate that you guys have been very active and are already doing collaborative things that are moving the needle towards the desires that he has, even if they haven't been fully flushed out at the legislative level. And then if you're able to identify additional activity that will allow him to say, you know, check the box of success, if not all the way, I think that will be very advantageous, especially if you do it this year for the second year that he is in that role.
Okay.
Let them check the box and move on.
Yeah, okay. We have a couple other questions real quick.
Well, I didn't have a question as much as a statement, but I would very much like an opportunity before you have another conversation with him to share this new iteration of the plan I had talked to him about months and months ago, because both Whit and I believe it's the answer to what we have just been talking about.
Okay.
And he can look at it as a very big solution to a very big idea and problem in our region.
Yeah, and to that point, a statement, and I concur with the chair, is that I met with him probably a month or 6 weeks ago on several things, and one of them was this, because he continued to bang on that, you know, merger, and I sat down, and to Alan's point, he basically said, I've got so much on my plate, I haven't even thought about it, I have no idea what it looks like. Because I said, is it a physical merger? Is it, you know, an American League and a National League and, you know, Major League Baseball? And I think to your point, Chair, is that if we can, and everybody else is, if we can show progress that we are cooperating and working together and common goals and focuses regionally, I think that will, to your point, show that we are moving that concept down the road. I don't know that any of us know what it really might look like. I think as it evolves, we may find out that we can operate separately, but yet together uniform buses so that they look the same but still operate, differently. And as the commissioner said, they were kind of enacted on two different platforms. So that's what I think he's looking for. I don't care. It's like your two kids are fighting. I don't care how you solve it, but go in that bedroom and figure it out and come out. And, I don't care how you do it, but just work together and come out and tell me it's all good. So.
Sort of combining the two of the comments that you just made. Here's a list of options of things that could be done. Here are the things that are going to be really tough to do because it requires the different funding sources,
right?
Whatever. Here's the things that we can do, and give us some guidance as to which ones you think will move. We might say that here's the 3 options in there that we think would have the most benefit.
Yeah, I think going in proactively to that meeting in September is a good idea. I think we're all on the same page, and I do think he's coming from the right place. I mean, from my perspective, just speaking personally, I think he's coming from the place of having seen other successful regions in Florida, I think particularly Orlando, that have taken a real regional approach and benefited from more money, basically. So we have about 5 minutes left. So what are the most important things we need to cover in our last 5 minutes on today's information item today?
Well, I think the discussion has been fantastic, and I appreciate the input. I've got a number of additional tasks to add to our strategy, but generally I think if there's anything else that the committee can think of, or if I think I've heard that you're generally comfortable with this idea that we want to work closely with both the MPO and the legislative delegation. And for the first, and maybe, I think last year we adopted the legislative priorities earlier, but the session is later, so we would target the October PSTA meeting. The September legislative committee, your next meeting, maybe one that we choose not to have. The one thought I had, we could discuss then. We will know the draft top 10 list of transportation priorities from the Pinellas MPO will be out and be prepared, poised for approval at their mid-September meeting.
Are you talking about our board meeting or our legislative meeting?
The legislative committee meeting.
You're suggesting not having it in September?
Well, I think we can always have a good discussion from 9 to 10:30, but
I mean, my view is, would it be possible to meet in September as a committee? And you all may disagree with me. Feel free to vote me down. But would it be possible to meet in September and look at a draft of where we're going for October?
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think?
I think we have to meet in September, and the reason I'm telling you that is because this whole thing here that's the result of the discussion I had with Whit yesterday is going to move very rapidly. And I think for our legislative committee, it's important to keep on the, keep us all on the same page and keep the information going.
Well,
so you're all aware and we can begin to start drafting a message.
I think too, if we use the September meeting as an opportunity to kind of work through a draft of where we're headed with these priorities, knowing of course that's going to be tweaked based on these ongoing meetings with our different members and representatives. I think that could be a productive use of our time, and it would also give us an opportunity, what I'd like to do in the August board meeting, or Brad, maybe you could do this, is mention that we are working on these ideas, and other board members want to come, if Commissioner Johnson is here, but if other board members who are not on the committee want to come and be a part of that, so the full board feels like we're going through our work and has an opportunity to also participate if they want to.
And it'd be good to have that meeting before the meeting in Brandon.
Well, it looks like we're scheduled to meet on September 7th, so it probably will be given everyone's schedule. So, anything else? Anyone else wants to raise today that we haven't talked about? Well, I think we have a great federal affairs and state legislative affairs team. We really appreciate all the work, you guys, and I know there's a lot more work to come. So thanks for all your help, and thanks to everyone today for their time. All right, we'll adjourn.
Great. Aaron,
Thank you.
how
2 minutes to
long are
spare.
you in
That's
town?
great.
Thanks, Steve, thanks, Alan.
Yes.
Leaving today to go back and take my mom up for a birthday party. I'm coming back next Monday night.
I know.
Here all
It's
along.
Oh, great, let's speak.
Did you call your customer help? Because I'm actually requesting
My
one.
mom turns 90 today.
But then,
Yeah, so we're
I don't know what it
back up.
was, but I gotta try this again.
Fire
Figure
back
it out,
to
yeah.
today, and we're gonna drive up
Oh, yeah, you told me.
Friday,
Well, I
and
accidentally
down there at Union
canceled my
birthday party.
so I actually ordered it, and I'm like, saying like, I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I gotta
Traveling
put it
full
on my
nerve-wracking.
damn thing. I'm like, all right, read request.
Well,
That's why I
mobility
was.
Yeah,
Why I was
right.
taking it.